Well, Stephen, it has been a dramatic week in the history of Cliftonville Football Club. Tuesday last week, they lost dramatically to Carrick Rangers on penalties in the final of the County Antrim Shield, but that has been totally overshadowed by the fact that the proposed investment with the Toronto Investment Group has collapsed very dramatically on Monday night when TIG released a statement saying that they were pulling out of the deal to take over the North Belfast club. Let's take things back a step. Let's tell our viewers who exactly are TIG and why did they want to take over at Cliftonville.
Well, the Toronto Investment Group, otherwise known as TIG, are a Canadian-Irish consortium, and they comprise of former Cliftonville midfielder Conor Devine, who is well known in Irish League circles, and also John Muffalini, Drew Green and Ron Davison. These four gentlemen saw an opportunity as far back, Keith, as August 2024 to invest in Irish League football. You'll know in recent years there's been quite a lot of investment in Irish League clubs, and obviously TIG thought, let's have a go and see if we can invest in Cliftonville Football Club, the oldest football club in Ireland, one of the most famous football clubs in Ireland, and everyone was thinking this could be something really exciting for the football club.
And obviously, this hasn't quite worked out as planned. On Monday night, TIG TIG released a statement saying that they were pulling out. Where has this all gone wrong? Because it's become very fractious and very bitter.
Well, it's like a soap opera, this. It really is. And every time I've been writing about this story, I feel as if at the end of the copy, I should be going doof, 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 because it's like EastEnders times 10. It's crazy, it's ridiculous, it's very, very messy, and I think it would be a good idea for us to look back on how it all began and where it is now, and then obviously we'll talk about what happens next. But April 2025, that was very, very significant, Keith, because back in April 2025, 88% of Cliftonville members voted for the TIG takeover to go ahead. 88%. That's incredible, isn't it, when you think about it? You know, because obviously Cliftonville have got quite a few older members and, you know, they might have been thinking, do we need this at this particular moment? But there was an overwhelming majority in favour of this. And I get that because Cliftonville don't want to be left behind. They've seen all these other clubs go full time. They've seen loads of money coming into these clubs. That means they're able to buy the best players. And while Cliftonville under Jim Magilton have done absolutely brilliant, there is a worry that long term they're going to struggle to win any sort of trophy in the future. So April 2025, all was looking rosy. Then things didn't particularly run very smoothly, and that led to an EGM in September the 1st, 2025.
I suppose a key point is that the Cliftonville board, Kieran Harding, the chairman, and the other board members were in favour of this at the start.
They were.
And then as we move things forward, at this point, they're no longer in favour of it.
No, they're no longer in favour, and they're thinking to themselves, should we go ahead with this investment? Come September the 1st, 2025, there was an EGM held. It all got a little bit messy that night, and it was decided that a subcommittee would be formed to oversee and look further into this proposal from TIG. That same month, civil war essentially broke out at Cliftonville Football Club. Cliftonville Football Club, which is well known for being together as one, and that's when it's at its strongest, and behind the scenes, everything was falling apart, Keith, in terms of relationships. So at Cliftonville's away game at Carrick, the chairman, Kieran Harding, was presented with a letter asking him to consider his position. In November 2025, Kieran Harding released a statement to the members saying that he had been subjected to personal threats and abuse amid the toxicity surrounding the battle for control of the club. So at this stage, it's all kicking off, and it ain't pretty. We're going to fast forward to January 2026 and the latest EGM. And that was set up to discuss the TIG proposal and also the futures of Kieran Harding, the chairman, and fellow board members David Bailie and Adrian Keenan. but the meeting descended into chaos because no votes were taken on the night about TIG or about the futures of the board members. The directors. The members were up in arms at this, and you can understand their frustration because they went there looking for a conclusion and they didn't get it. 1 week later, bombshell, absolute bombshell. TIG release a statement starting with these words: "It is with heavy hearts that the Toronto Investment Group are announcing the withdrawal of our investment proposal to Cliftonville Football Club with immediate effect." This is a very difficult decision, and they add that there were circumstances beyond their control relating to that decision. So it's funny, we're looking at their statement. It's a very, very detailed statement, but they say that they've been working on this opportunity since August 2024. They've had meetings with directors from March 2025, and all was going well at that stage. And then they say in their statement, TIG, that in August 2025, they were informed by their solicitor that neither the chairman of Cliftonville FC nor the members of the board of directors would be communicating further or directly with TIG, and communication would be through solicitors. So that certainly gives TIG's point of view. Essentially, the relationship had fallen apart. And between all this, there's all these infighting going on at Cliftonville, and TIG have effectively pulled out this week. The Cliftonville Management Committee also made a statement on Monday night, and it's worth pointing out a few things that they said in that. One that caught my eye was this: while the board remained open to securing long-term investment that could strengthen Cliftonville's future, it also became increasingly concerned in recent months about the protracted nature of the takeover approach and the tensions that emerged as a result, both within the club and among the wider membership. The management committee also said that they will now take time to reflect on the position, stabilise matters, and consider their next steps, including how best to pursue sustainable investment and development opportunities aligned with, get this, Cliftonville's values, heritage, and long-term interests. So here we are. Cliftonville fans are obviously now digesting all this news. It's been turbulent, to say the least. The soap opera has been very, very messy, and frankly, I believe it's been a real sorry state of affairs, because I've been covering Cliftonville Football Club for 30 years, and as I alluded to earlier, Cliftonville are always at their strongest when they are together. I can remember back in 1998 when everything was against Cliftonville, and somehow Marty Quinn, his players, the board, the fans, all stood as one to win probably the most famous title race in modern history for Cliftonville Football Club. But right now, it's fractious, and there's lots of soul searching that needs to go on. There's lots of backbiting that is continuing, and it is not a good place for Cliftonville Football Club to be.
No, it's an extraordinary situation. When you boil it down, TIG have pulled out. The Cliftonville board or the hierarchy are pleased about this, clearly, from that statement. Cliftonville supporters, not all supporters think the same way, but clearly the majority of them are frustrated and annoyed that what they saw as a magnificent opportunity to get more investment into the club and see better players, and maybe more importantly, keep the great players that Cliftonville bring through and so often lose at the club. But it hasn't worked out like that. Or will it? Is TIG really dead in the water? Could we see this come back later down the line? Are they really out and gone for good?
I have heard this theory, Keith, and the theory goes, obviously TIG have made this statement, and they didn't hold anything back, as the management committee were the same on the night that they made their statement. So the theory goes that maybe if Kieran Harding were to leave the club, potentially if David Bailie left the club, then TIG might come back. I think that's playing games, though. I don't like the sound of that. I know some members and members who deeply care about the club, by the way. I know some of them, and boy, they bleed red in every sense. Um, but it's so messy. Do you really want it to get even more messy? And I can understand this theory being put about there, but I will say this as well. I've known Kieran Harding for a long time, and I know the members are upset with him and have asked for his resignation. Uh, Kieran Harding is what I would class as a good football man, and I think he would be trying to do his best for Cliftonville Football Club. Obviously, there's huge disagreements there, and people want him out. But I would completely condemn any of the abuse that he has taken, that it's got personal and all that. And then there's David Bailie, who's well known in Irish League football circles. I'll be honest here. David and I have had our run-ins in the past, but again, he cares about Cliftonville Football Club, and every club is entitled to scrutinise any new investment coming in. You only have to look at some investors across the world to see where they have made a mess of things after taking over clubs. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that TIG would have done that. TIG could have been the greatest thing that ever happened to Cliftonville Football Club. But we are where we are. What I would suggest to them is there has to be some form of meeting of minds here between the members, between the board, because it's affecting things on the pitch, in my opinion. Cliftonville under Jim Magilton have been brilliant. They've won 2 trophies. They won the Irish Cup, finally breaking that curse. They won the League Cup last season. They've also reached another 2 finals, which they've lost on penalty shootouts. But these sorts of things tend to get into the dressing room, and players will be talking about it, no doubt about that. And it can affect things on the pitch. Magilton has done an incredible job to keep a lid on it to this degree and so far. But yeah, I do think it is affecting everything to do with Cliftonville Football Club right now.
I mean, the obvious thing is Cliftonville seem to lose any good player that comes their way, bar Joe Gormley. I mean, you look, even this month they've lost Casey, a fantastic player. They've got fantastic money for him, to be fair, going to Shelburne, but they can't hold on to any player for any length of time, and that's something that I guess Cliftonville fans are excited about, the prospect of being able to hang on to their key players. What is it? 14 of the 18-man squad that won the Irish Cup 18 months ago are no longer at Solitude. That's an incredible turnover.
Yeah, I'm glad for their sake. Rory Hale's there too, by the way. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult for Magilton to hold on to these guys because, as you saw with Casey, Casey's a quality player, one of the best players in the Irish League for the past couple of seasons, I would say. Once Shelburne came rocking up and asking and saying, we'll give you this money, there was no way they could turn it down, nor could Casey. What an opportunity for him, and I hope he does really, really well in the League of Ireland. But yeah, you're right, Keith. It's tough for them to bring in players. If you look at what the likes of Glentoran and Larne and Coleraine and Linfield to a certain extent, and who they have brought in this season, with respect, they're a completely different level to the players that Jim Magilton is able to bring in. And Cliftonville, although they're, for me, a realistic bunch of fans, they also want to be competing at the top level like any set of fans wants. And they feel that, the TIG investment would have given them the opportunity to do that. I'll add this. The drama's not over. Not even close, Keith. The soap opera will continue. They've got to sort it out, though, and make it more smooth instead of going through all these rough waters. I would be surprised if Kieran Harding, after all of this, is not considering his future. He released that statement last year about the abuse that he has taken, and whether you agree with his policy on running Cliftonville or not, you would have to think and be sympathetic to someone getting that personal abuse. So he'll be thinking about his future, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kieran walked away and said, you know what, I've done all I can, and I'm going to move on now and let someone else take over the reins. What will happen then will be very, very interesting, i.e. if Kieran went, who would be the new chairman? And yes, would TIG consider maybe coming back in? So yeah, there is a lot of chapters in this story left to run, But my own personal view is I want people to come together in some shape or form for the good of the football club, for the good of Jim Magilton and his players, and for the good of the community as well at North Belfast, because it's a great community football club, and when everyone's together, it is one strong outfit.